Happy Sunday. Maybe you've already watched some of this, so you're like, just, get to the point. But I'm going to wait until at least a couple people get here, because I want this to be something that is a little bit more interactive and not just me rattling off stuff to you. So what can I do in the meantime that's useful? I'm stuck in this mode where every time I have a free moment of thought, still the shark, the stupid baby shark, and it's mommy, and it's daddy. Do. Well, until you guys actually get here, I'm gonna go open up the canvas. I'm gonna go through some of the research discussion stuff that you guys talked about, to try and create some sort of narrative with you in the case that you never come. I don't blame you. I know. I've been sick, been inconsistent. I haven't even posted the 9th discussion yet, because I'm not sure how I want to word it until we talk today. It'll be posted tonight, so don't worry about it. And still, the max amount of points that you could have on discussions is 21. I haven't touched anything since discussion 6. Let's go see what your discussions look like. Gotcha. Week 8. There's like a billion posts, which is good. I've gotten every single one of your posts as a notification to my phone over the past few days. So I know that you guys have been doing what you're supposed to be doing. So one of the common themes that I saw in your discussions was that most of your research experience has only been through SONA participation. And that both makes me happy, because prior to recent times, SONA has been something that was a requirement in some of the introductory to psychology classes, and it both helped students understand what experiments could possibly look like and to get involved in them. I know my first semester on campus, I did, I think, like 5 different credit hours of experiments, and it was genuinely interesting. I was in one of those experiments that involves deception, and at some point I was told that I was going to get kicked out of the school for what I did in the experiment. And I remember plotting in the experiment room that I was going to facilitate the demise of that experimenter somehow, because I just started school. I have so much hope, so many dreams. You can't take it away over this experiment. But it's good that you guys are involved in it. But if you're going to choose to get involved in it, and know that most of the time now it's not a requirement, it's going to be something that's for extra credit, and every professor that assigns SONA hours as extra credit has to give you an option other than SONA that's something kind of equal. So usually it'll be like a short paper of some sort or something like that they'll have you do. But if you do choose to go in and do research, you have to make sure that, as future researchers yourself especially, you go in and you thoroughly answer whatever it is that the particular study asks of you. Because when you go in and you just kind of Christmas tree your answers, or you get bored halfway through and you kind of stop answering with the level of attention and accuracy you should have, it skews people's research. And if enough people do that in participating in somebody's experiment, it could totally invalidate years worth of work that somebody's put into trying to make a meaningful contribution to the field of psych or whatever else is using SONA systems on campus. So I'm glad that so many of you have experience in SONA, and I hope that you guys are the kinds of participants that actually go in. If you've ever gotten a chance to go into a study in person, they're pretty interesting to be a part of. I know I did a lot of my stuff online too because it was just easier. So let's see. Go through your discussions. Criminal psychology, women's relationships. SONA, more SONA, more SONA. And still none of you. Okay. Well, sorry to have wasted 6 minutes of your life when you actually do watch this video. But this is another one of those real talk sort of subjects. So when you're applying to graduate school, or even if you are going straight into a program like the behavior analysis program, they want you to have some degree of two different things. One being some sort of previous research experience, and the second being some sort of involvement in something during your college career. So to start with the research thing, first I'll go through the actual labs, and then I'll address some of the concerns that some of you have had with being students who are not necessarily on campus and how you can compete with students who are on campus. So, oh, who are you? Somebody's here. It's just gonna be you and me. We're just gonna talk to each other, and you can make this entire thing about you. Who are you? Doesn't tell me who you are. So, getting involved at FIU. Now, the actual link is to the research labs on campus is psychology.fiu/research/labs/index.html. But the short version of that is just go Google FIU psychology research, and it'll come up with the link to this lab. And when you go through, you'll see that there are a bunch of different things listed, and some of them are very up to date and some of them might not be, depending on how active the lab is at any given moment. So not every lab that you see in this list is going to have active research or research opportunities for you to get involved in at any given moment. They kind of go through little cycles, and most of the labs, if you're going to apply to them to work in the lab and have like a research assistant position and whatnot, they'll start in the fall and they'll want you to do 2 consecutive semesters because they're going to be investing their resources and their time in training you how to work in the lab. So they want you to dedicate yourself back and be there for an extended period of time. So the cognition and neuroscience labs are definitely some of the more popular that I've seen with students that I've worked with. But you need to understand, if you're going to get involved in a big entity like a lab, there's a lot of hands working on projects that can be very complex. So your job within that lab is not going to be to oversee something from the beginning to the end of a project. You're not going to be doing every component of a research study most of the time, unless you get in, you kind of pay your dues, and then you start doing your own studies. But you're usually going to be working on some component that's extremely tedious in the research process. So I know in one of the neuroscience labs, one of the research positions is just to slice mouse brains. Like you're in a deli, like literally on a slicer, and you have to do it for an extended period of time because these are things that are temperature controlled and they become useless essentially if a certain procedure isn't followed. So your time in that research lab, while you'll get experience and insight and be able to see how a complicated study, especially one using live or once living specimen, because you are in charge in some of these labs of euthanizing animals. A lot of the labs actually use rats, mice, one uses quails, and you have to be ready to do some of these things that you might not want to do. So you definitely have to vet out these different labs and what you would be able to handle in participating in them. Some of them involve, especially with the Center for Children and Families, involve working with children and after school programs and stuff like that, doing different testing. Eventually you can get into programs where you're actually using maybe the MRI machine we have on campus or getting to work a lot with people. I'm seeing now the developmental psychobiology lab actually has the pictures of the little quails. And for the most part, you're working with actual like live quails, but sometimes bad stuff happens. So yeah, when you go click on these links, it will give you an overview of the lab. And sometimes it'll link you to some important papers. It'll show you what the current projects are that the lab is working on. The one I'm looking at right now has a news section, and it's split up into, I'm looking at the neuroinformatics and brain connectivity lab. And there's the actual team. It shows their research, papers, talks, posters, software, and a news section. So when you click on the research link, it'll show the projects and then the individual projects, how they're funded, who's running the lab. And then somewhere, down at the bottom right, it says join, contact about the site for lab members. You click on join, and then it'll tell you exactly how, if you were looking at this particular lab, that you would go in and be a part of it. So what do they say? Applications to FIU's cognitive neuroscience. We're currently looking for graduate students in either physics or psychology. And then undergraduate. Okay, so they have a graduate and undergraduate section if you want to get involved, maybe while you're a master's student in some sort of applied research. But they all have an email address somewhere, and that's where you want to go get contact information and speak directly with either the grad students of the lab or the professors directly if you get a chance to get a hold of them. They're very busy. So the big names that you see on these labs might not be the kinds of people that you're going to work with. More often than not, you're going to be working with somebody like me, who's a graduate student working on research underneath one of these major named professors. So go to the labs page, peruse around, see if there's anything there that is actively seeking students, or if you're one of the students that's solely online, some of them, I believe, would have some kinds of active participation that you could do outside of the lab. So a lot of times there's coding projects with your experiments, or maybe cleaning SPSS data, or just other things that you can do under the supervision of people in the lab without necessarily being there. But what you should expect when you get involved is to get some sort of training in the lab, to be working under people. And in these actual labs on campus, they want you to be there a dedicated number of hours a week. It's like a job. It's not paid. You get research experience, and then people who are going to write you letters of recommendation someday for grad school, but you have to be there like it's a job. You're going to be there 10 hours a week, maybe 20 hours a week. They're going to be scheduled, and you have to go in and contribute. These are very, very serious sorts of positions. I wish that there were some of you in here maybe asking about specific research, but I know me personally, I am just now at the point of having IRB approval. So for those of you who have not been active in research yet, each one of these studies goes through something called the International Review Board. And it's basically an ethics committee that has an extensive application for each study that you're going to do, where you have to prove that there is no risk to participants, or if there is some sort of risk, the risk is either negligible or acceptable given the kinds of things that you're going to get out of the results of the study. So there's different things that you do if you're working with human participants or animals, or just working online with data and whatnot. So I just received my approval for my dissertation, and within the next month or two, I will be talking and trying to form my own little mini lab. It will not pop up on the FIU lab, but it'll be my own little group of people that I'll be working with in terms of getting measures together, putting measures on Qualtrics, which is the data analysis survey system that most of us use in psych, getting things into SPSS, coding data afterwards, and helping in terms of having people understand what exactly a massive project like mine is involved in. So if IO interests you at all, my topic is actually half IO, half cognitive. It's on memory in the workplace. Shoot me an email and I will include you when I send out my little call for help message within the next week or two. But the labs is how you're predominantly going to get involved in research on campus, unless you find a graduate student and you directly approach them and say, hey, I want to help you with your thesis or your dissertation or the research that you're working on for publication. Most time, grad students are going to welcome help because we are overworked and probably burnt out by the time that you've gotten to us. But for those of you who aren't going to be on campus and who find getting actively involved in research to be something that's difficult, there are some options. The first, most straightforward option is finding a professor that, even if you've only taken them online, you've taken them, or even if you haven't taken them, you share common interests with them, and writing to them. And if they don't have any sort of things that you can do from abroad in terms of helping with the lab, you can enroll in research credits with them. There's different types of credits. There's an honors thesis or whatever. But the basic thing that anybody could enroll in is just psychology independent research that's supervised by a professor. And you go in and you enroll and you pick however many credits you want to be involved in, 1, 2, 3, more than that. And you will work on your own on a research topic of your choosing that you agree on with whoever is running the class for you. You set up a timeline and you go through whatever it is that you're going to do in the scope of that project. And when you get done, you have some sort of tangible experience. Most often, you're not going to be running a real complicated experiment, if an experiment at all. It might be something that's more literature review involved in some sort of topic area that's an offshoot of maybe who you're working with. But I did it in undergrad. I enjoyed it. It's independent, so you can do it from wherever, and you don't have to worry about it. And it's something that you can put on your CV or your resume for graduate programs or jobs in the future. And the other option you have is doing some projects on your own in areas that you know might be important to things that you're going to do in the future. And I teach the senior seminar class, and we go over resumes pretty thoroughly. And I include in my CV a research section. And once you guys get through methods, or if you already have been through methods, you know that you have some sort of tangible experience in research. This is a research institution, so a lot of the classes that you're going to take, even though we are a soft science and psychology, are going to involve some sort of research. You're going to be doing papers for classes, whether they're just literature reviews or just 5-page little research papers. Hang on to those, because if that's all you have when you're going to apply to maybe a master's program in psych, you can still call on that as some sort of research experience. Because when a committee sits you down, if you even get to the point where they're making you sit down and answer questions about things, most of the time that doesn't happen at the master's level, at least. as long as you can hold a conversation about the research area that you're telling them you have experience in, that's pretty much a good enough sort of thing, unless you're applying to get into a very complicated lab that requires more experience than that. So I actually have 3 of you now. Nope, I lost one. I have 2. I have 2 of you. If you have any direct questions, throw them in the comments section. If not, I'm just going to keep rambling on with whatever seems important to me, but may not answer questions that you may have about research, because this is definitely something that a lot of you wanted to talk about in the feedback for the course. So you have to take the initiative either way, whether it's something that you do on campus in a lab or something that you do independently. You have to take the initiative to do that research if you know that that's going to be important to what you're supposed to do in the future. So yes, there are opportunities. You can be competitive with another person who's applying for a degree who's worked in a lab on campus, because maybe their job was that they were slicing mice all day long. And maybe your research involved every step of the process because you worked one-on-one with a professor through independent study. So maybe you have a leg up if you're going into a program that wants that. So don't feel hopeless in terms of your experience not matching up to somebody who's in a lab on campus, because you was kind, you was smart, and you was important whether or not you was on campus. So that's my little speech for that. Now, in terms of the second part of this little topic area, the other kinds of involvement that you need to have in terms of more specifically graduate programs, but in general, making you a well-rounded graduate from FIU. So another important page, which it's easier again just to Google. I Googled CSO FIU, but the website is studentaffairs.fiu.edu. So once you go there, you can click on the Get Involved link, and it'll come up with this endless amount of links to the different kinds of things that you can get involved in on campus. So they have athletic organizations, they have things that are tied directly to campus, like student government or student programming. Then they have fraternities and sororities and different communities related to Greek life. They have stuff like leadership and career development. They have cultural programs. There's a lot of different types of things that you can get involved in. And again, some things that don't necessarily mean that you have to be on campus. So one of the things, just in general, clubs and organizations, there should be a list. If you go to Council for Student Organizations, there should be a list of all student organizations here. And there is. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but there is a lot of different ways that you can get involved. And maybe if you see something that there's an area where you think that there could be a club or an organization for something, like maybe online psychology students at FIU. Hey, you could make your own organization for people that are online only studying psychology, and you guys can, you get me? I'll be your faculty advisor, because I don't like meeting in people with person either. Meeting in person with people, I can't even speak the words. Can't even speak them. So antisocial. But you guys can make clubs out of anything. You just have to get people who want to join, and you have to be active in it. And you do need a faculty advisor and whatnot. But there are a lot of different ways that you can get involved, specifically with clubs and organizations. One of the most, well, there's a couple meaningful things that I was involved in. I got involved in student government, and it is something that can be time consuming and a little bit stressful, but it teaches you a lot about, this sounds cheesy, it teaches you a lot about yourself. You definitely have to learn how to interact with others in this process, but it also teaches you a little bit about government in general. and how to be democratic about things, and sometimes the not so nice sides of government. And even if you wanted it to be something that was tailored to psychology, there are psychology representatives within student government, and you can go be a part of the council and make some sort of difference within the university, specifically from the scope of being a psych student. So I ran something that doesn't exist anymore, but it was called the Honors Council, and it oversaw all of the honor societies on campus, which now all fall under this Council for Student Organizations thing. I had an office, and it was great. I'd walk through GC, and everybody would know my name, so I couldn't hide from anyone. Couldn't go to school in pajamas one day because everybody would know. But it was great. It was great, and I strongly suggest it to anybody who's looking to get involved on campus. The other thing that I did was join an academic organization that was part academic and part Greek. This is not going to be for everybody, but it did match the whole aspect of fellowship within a group of people on campus with people who were driven towards academic success in some way. Mine was a business fraternity, but they have pre-law, they have pre-med, they have a few different types of these organizations that are above and beyond honor societies. They're not like GPA restricted, but they do take the social aspect and intermingle it with some sort of professional development, which to me, that is the best thing that you could get involved in. Excuse me, the best thing that you could get involved in, because you both develop that interpersonal thing that people are looking for in the future, and you're getting that professional development tailored to whatever it is that you want to do in the future. So if you're looking into law, definitely look into the pre-law fraternity. If you're interested in IO or in anything, look into the business fraternities on campus, because they teach you about public speaking, building resumes, networking, the general types of professional development. It was a really great opportunity. And the students that I've had since I've been an actual professor and not a student myself have really enjoyed getting involved in those types of things. And then at some point you get tired of it, but it's good for a purpose. What you guys might also want to get involved in on campus is Psychi, or if you're double majoring, the other honor society that's involved with whatever your major is. Almost every single major on campus has some sort of honor society that's directly involved with their academics. I am in Psychi, and I'm in the Religious Studies Honor Society. There's also something called Omicron Delta Kappa, which is a leadership one. So if you already do have campus involvement, Omicron Delta Kappa is a very widespread, well-known leadership honor society. You can get involved with any of the ones that have sent you the letters asking you to join, but don't think that you need to go spend a bunch of money in order to be a part of those societies. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I still continue to get things where they ask me for money, like every month, from every society I ever joined. You do not have to do that. Trust me. I'm really bummed. I was really hoping there was going to be somebody asking me some sort of questions. I guess what I will have to do is just schedule another time to have some sort of office hours or something. You guys are you're gonna watch this video and you're gonna be like, this is so sad. You were so much more excited when you were talking to us about our assignment. What happened to you in the past hour? If you have questions about this stuff, feel free to ask me at any time. But the reason why I wanted to include this in the class is because it is something that people want to see on an application for grad school. And it is something that an employer will value when they see it on your resume. Because when you go into a master's or doctoral level program, you are not alone anymore. You are now a part of however many people are in that group, and they want to know that you can work well with others. And as somebody that has notoriously had some issues with that, I know that your survival and your well-being in your academic program depends on you being able to communicate with other people and work with other people. So when they're looking at an application, and I said this in the talk that I gave to the psychology conference, if they're looking at somebody with a 4.0 who has no listed experience with anything involvement related, and then they have somebody with a 3.5 who's been involved in an honor society or a club or a research lab or something like that, they're going to pick the person with the lower GPA that's proved that they can balance having a life with being involved in academics, because that's what's most important. They want somebody with a personality. They want somebody who can be a free thinker, but they want somebody that can also work well with others, to be a leader and to be a follower at the same time. It's very important in these types of programs. So take that seriously. And even if it's not on campus, even if you live in California and you're doing your degree online, which I commend you, it's not an easy thing to do. There are plenty of ways that you can get involved. Get involved in community service, get involved in whatever religious organization or church or whatever you're involved with. Become a part of Big Brother, Big Sister. Do things like that challenge you as a person and also give you that kind of experience so that nobody can decline you in the future because you've been a hermit like me. So, yeah, think on it. I'll post the discussion tonight. And then I'll give you this sad face as I say bye. That's just not attractive.